Hey folks, I just wanted to explain why I am not voting in this year's federal election in Canada. Um, for one thing, I can't vote for the party of my choice. So I have been a candidate for and have supported for several years now the Communist Party of Canada. But because Justin Trudeau lied in 2015 when he said that would be the last first past the post election in Canada, and he decided to keep that system because, of course, it was a benefit to him, not to the rest of us. Because of that, I can't vote for a party unless they have a candidate in my specific riding, which the Communist Party doesn't have. They don't run candidates across the country. They have several that run in certain parts of the country. Under proportional representation, I would very likely have the opportunity to vote for them even if they didn't have a candidate directly in my riding. So that's thanks to Justin Trudeau. I can't actually vote for the party that I want to. Uh, Probably the biggest lie and biggest consequential lie of the 2015 election that Justin Trudeau told. Now, my other reason for not voting this time around is I can't support war criminals and war crimes and people who sit by silently while war crimes and criminals operate among them. I and we only have to go back to the NATO bombing campaign against Libya to discover we have war criminals within our own borders. War criminals like Stephen Harper. NATO, at that time, that mission was led by Canada to bomb Libya back into the Stone Age, where it went from being one of the most prosperous nations, arguably the most prosperous nation in all of Africa, to being a failed state, a hub of competing terrorist groups, and open slave markets. Now, that was done with the support generally of all the parliamentarians, or the major parties certainly, didn't stand up to the NATO bombing mission in Libya. And war crimes were committed there. Too specifically, they targeted non military institutions, buildings, and infrastructure, and they targeted individuals. Both of those are war crimes. Punishing people collectively because you don't like the leadership of a country is also a war crime. So that, of course, Justin Trudeau wasn't going to pursue war crime charges against Mr. Harper because he largely supports them. The Liberal Party is a pro-imperialist party, and there's never been in much doubt about that. And when Mr. Harper was in a minority position, the Liberals voted with him all the time. So to think that he was going to, have an about face and all of a sudden actually stand up for human rights and the rights of individuals, especially impoverished individuals, because that's primarily who we bomb and destroy in the Middle East. The idea that he was going to do that someday is ridiculous. So I can't vote for war criminals, people who support war criminals, and people who sit by silently while war criminals are given speaking tours in their own nation and other nations and lauded in all sorts of ways and propped up as somehow venerable past leaders of our great nation. So the other problem, um, the other problem is the big genocide lie. All these major parties and parliamentarians supported the resolution in Parliament in Ottawa just earlier this year to declare that China is committing a genocide against its minority Uyghur population in Xinjiang province. Now, there's just no hard evidence of this. And even the reports produced primarily by one person, Adrian Zenz, have been soundly destroyed by independent journalists like Max Blumenthal and Ben Norton at thegrayzone.com have done lengthy investigative reporting into Mr. Zenz and his fraudulent reporting of and claims, fraudulent claims of a genocide in Xinjiang province. The fact that our parliamentarians and parties, major parties especially, can't or won't do anything to stand up for truth and honesty or evidence-based positions should be alarming to everyone. It kind of makes folks doubt their capacity for being able to soundly evaluate what is evidence and what is propaganda. It also waters down this claim of a genocide where one doesn't exist, waters down the real genocides that have happened and continue to happen, and it serves the whole anti-China campaign serves as a useful tool to deflect people away from criticizing their own government and their own terrible actions against whether it's their indigenous population or the poorer nations of Africa or Latin America and our imperialist efforts over there, and leading the charge, our nation's leading the charge of murderous sanctions against the people of Venezuela in specifically. Sanctions, economic sanctions that kill people, is siege warfare, which is a war crime. You're collectively punishing the people of that nation because you have a problem with the leadership of that nation. That's a war crime. That's being carried out right now. And do we see parliamentarians, any of the major parties, standing up against the murderous sanction regime led by Canada against Venezuela? Just as one example. There are other examples too. We're not even going to get into Palestine. But we can also look at the fraudulent claim that our country stands up for human rights by looking at the trade deals that we have with Saudi Arabia. Per capita, we sell more weaponry to Saudi Arabia than the United States does. In that last major set of armament deals to Saudi Arabia, the United States committed to selling $120 billion worth of armament. Canada, with 1/10 the population, is selling $15 billion worth of armament to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, who has rightfully been named as a perpetrator of atrocities and war crimes in Yemen. They're not, our parliamentarians and major parties are not standing up for those people. So I refuse to vote for war criminals and imperialists and all these people who do not represent my beliefs. And I think you should not vote either for people who do not represent your beliefs. Stop voting for the least worst. Start voting for people and parties that actually represent what you want to see done in the world and how you want to see your own country run. Too many people vote, especially in Canada. Yeah, I mean, you hear the reasons why people don't even vote because they hate all the parties. They think their votes don't matter. And I know statistically, my vote has never mattered. It's a bit of a fraudulent claim to tell people that voting is the most important thing you can do. Statistically, my vote has never mattered. No election I've ever voted in has come down to one vote. And most of the time, every candidate I voted for has lost. And it's meant nothing in the end. So don't feel like you need to vote just because you're a citizen of Canada and you have the right to vote. And you also have the right not to vote. And you have the right not to support war criminals and parties that hide war criminals within their ranks. Because a lot of these people who were in the Harper administration and the parties that supported Harper's efforts, they're still in Parliament. They're the leaders of their respective parties in many cases. So don't feel pressure to vote. Stop supporting people who don't represent you, who don't represent your beliefs, who are selling out your best interests, who are gaslighting you, telling you there's a genocide somewhere else so that you don't think about their terrible crimes that they're committed in their own nation and elsewhere in your name. Thanks for your time.